Today we'll be making fresh pasta and using it to make fettuccine, aglio e olio, or fettuccine with garlic and oil. Let's get started. To make fresh pasta, you'll need 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 3 eggs, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and 1 tablespoon of salt. This recipe is good for 4 servings. To begin, we place 2 cups of all-purpose flour onto the board and make a small well in the center. Then, crack 3 eggs, trying to keep the egg whites contained within the well. This same process can be done in a mixing bowl to avoid any risk of eggs running out onto the counter. Start scrambling the eggs and incorporating the flour along the outer wall of the well. Keep stirring and mixing until a large majority of the outside of the well has been incorporated into the egg mixture in the center. You can use your non-whisking hand to help support the edges of the well, as well as push some of the flour into the center. Whoops, I almost forgot to add the olive oil and salt. You can add it any time during the mixing before a solid dough is formed. After enough flour has been mixed in, the dough becomes viscous enough that we can break down the walls of the well and incorporate larger amounts of flour. Once the dough reaches a paste-like consistency and the fork gets too difficult to whisk with, it's time to form a shaggy block of dough. I find a bench scraper useful at this point, but your hands work well too. Just remember to dust them with flour first. Your goal here is to incorporate as much of the flour into the dough as possible. I'm using the bench scraper to collect the flour, while my other hand compresses the flour into the dough. Once you're convinced the dough will hold no more dry flour, begin kneading on top of some of the excess flour. Some of it will be incorporated as you knead. Clean off your board or bench, flour the work surface, and knead for 10 to 15 minutes. It's a great arm workout. Here's a technique I like to use. We essentially fold the dough in half and press it into itself. I use my right hand to fold the dough over my left hand. Then, I press down with my right hand. Then I turn the dough 90 degrees and repeat the process. The dough will get more and more smooth and elastic as you knead it. At 10 to 15 minutes, you can test the elasticity of the dough by pressing on it and watching it spring back. Now, tightly wrap the dough in plastic wrap and let it rest for 30 minutes. This allows the gluten to relax before we roll it out. After 30 minutes, unwrap the dough and cut it into quarters. Each quarter is around a serving of noodles. Now we're going to roll out the dough. We're going to work with 1/4 of the dough and just do 4 batches. Keep the dough that isn't being used tightly wrapped in plastic wrap or under a wet towel. This prevents it from getting too dry. First, we're going to roll the dough out by hand. Flour the work surface, rolling pin and dough. We're going to laminate the dough a few times by folding it in half and rolling it out. Then, turn the dough 90 degrees and repeat the process a total of 3 times. This helps us achieve a more oblong rectangular shape. Next, start rolling the dough. Continue dusting flour onto the work surface and dough to prevent sticking. Technique-wise, I tend to use my left hand to anchor the dough, while my right hand presses both the dough out and rolls it forward. Rotate 90 degrees and continue rolling until the entire sheet is thin enough that you can see your hand through it. Now that the dough is thin enough, it's time to roll it up and cut to desired thickness. Be sure to thoroughly dust the surface of the dough with flour before cutting, or the layers may stick together. I'm looking to make fettuccine here, so my cuts will be spaced about a 1/4 inch apart. But at this point, you can make whatever shape you want. As Chef John would say, you are the king ape of your pasta shape. After you finish cutting out the pasta, unroll the noodles and dust well with flour. You really don't want them sticking together at this point. Once dusted, you can store them in Tupperware in the freezer for up to a month. Honestly, rolling out pasta entirely by hand is slow if you don't frequently practice. Thankfully, I have a hand-cranked pasta machine that helps me roll dough out quickly and easily. First, we start with the laminating process, just like hand-rolled pasta. Then, we feed the dough through the pasta machine on its widest setting. We'll keep feeding the dough through the pasta machine, adjusting the thickness down a notch each pass through. Keep an eye on the dough and dust it with flour as needed, since it could easily stick to the rollers. Once the dough has been rolled through the thinnest setting, it's likely that the sheet you're working with is much too long for a normal length of noodle. Cut the sheet in half and then proceed to roll the dough through the noodle slicing attachment. Dust the noodles well with flour as they come out. You really can't overdust them. We're going to use this fresh pasta to make a super simple recipe, Fettuccine Aglio e Olio, or fettuccine with garlic and oil. For this recipe, you're going to need a quarter wedge of lemon, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of freshly ground black pepper, 5 to 6 cloves of garlic, 1 tablespoon of red pepper flakes, and some pasta. The only prep we need to do here is to thinly slice the garlic. Then, we're ready to cook. I've had a pot of boiling water ready to cook the pasta in. Since this is fresh pasta, it'll only take 30 seconds to cook. And because the pasta cooks so quickly, we have to get our sauce ready first. This one's super simple. To a heated, non-stick skillet, add olive oil and garlic, and sauté until the garlic is soft over a medium-high heat. Add the red pepper flakes and pepper, and turn the heat to medium. Now we're ready to cook the fresh pasta. Toss it in and stir quickly to prevent noodles from sticking to the bottom of the pot. Once the noodles start floating, you know they're cooked. Transfer the pasta to the saucepan. Pour a ladle of the starchy pasta water into the pan, squeeze the lemon, and add some salt to taste. Turn up the heat, stir and shake vigorously to emulsify the sauce. At this point, the pasta is done. Plating is pretty straightforward. We grab a pair of tongs and a ladle. Grab a batch of noodles with the tongs and twist the tongs against the ladle. Transfer it to the plate and garnish with some parsley. You'll just have to imagine some parsley here. I ran out. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed my fresh pasta tutorial. See you on the next one.